We will experience decades or centuries equivalent of change in the coming years. Now, someone may say, like, I'm being too ambitious on AI. It's not real. Fine. Say it's 10 years. Say it's 20. Like, whatever. Like, take whatever time frame you want. For all intents and purposes, if you're thinking about it from a 25th perspective, it's right now. It doesn't matter if it's 1 year, or 5, or 10, or 20, or 50. It's all right now. It's about the future of the species. And it's about this contemplation of we're probably not going to make it through this moment if we can't figure out how not to annihilate ourselves. When you say that we might annihilate ourselves, what odds are you giving that? Like, do you feel that we are on the precipice where there is a meaningful percentage chance that we actually don't make it through this moment, which I want you to define? Like, are you worried about climate change the most? Are you worried about AI the most? Are you worried about war? Yeah. You know, an asteroid wiped out the dinosaurs. And so we have that kind of risk. We have solar flares problems. We have all kinds of existential risks that are outside of our control, or less so. Then we have the ones that are in our control. So will we use weapons of mass destruction? Will we point AI to cause unmitigated harm? Will AI crisis happen because it just runs away out of our control? Will our climate change so much that the Earth becomes so difficult to live here that our supply chains break down, and we crawl back to be hunters and gatherers? Like, we saw that when the supply chains broke down with COVID, society kind of broke down. You couldn't get computers. You couldn't get companies. You couldn't get their supplies. The world just kind of broke down from one little virus. And now you've got this complicated situation where the climate is making food supplies challenging and transport, and rivers dry up. And all the things we're seeing, it might render us basically neutered to operate the species in some kind of effective way, which renders us kind of powerless. And so what I'm saying is yes, the situation is pretty serious. And we've done pretty well. We've had nukes for a couple decades, and gratefully, we've only used it twice. Sadly, we used it, but only a limited number, 2 times. And so what I'm saying is if we're having breakfast and a tsunami is on its way, what we have for breakfast kind of matters but kind of doesn't. Like, we've got a bigger problem to handle. Is this situation right in front of us is sufficiently serious that we should be reallocating all of our attention to figure out how we make this thing through? This is not a normal day. And so when you bring up there's drama between this and that company, sure, fine. It's a drama that people understand. It's a drama that people want to comment on. It's good fun. It does redirect our attention away from this bigger problem that I'm trying to address. Okay, in your book, so I won't feel bad pushing you on this. In your book, one of the characters says a number will do. We can debate later. I want to get a sense of what, in fact, that same character goes on to say, like, we have to be able to agree what the stakes are. And so this is where Sam Harris, who I love and think is amazing, he believes I don't understand his thinking. He has very graciously agreed to come back on the show, which I can't wait for. I think I do understand his thinking. And I think the disconnect is I don't believe that Trump, in this case, is an existential threat, meaning that we are at risk of the human race ending. So because we disagree on the stakes, we disagree on all the follow-on to-do items. Now, what I'm trying to understand is, at the very beginning of this interview you said yes, we should, when AI is ready, we should give our decision-making over to that entity. And I'm saying, okay, are you saying that because you actually believe this unique moment in time is existential in nature? Or is this just, well, there's always asteroids, there's always those things? Is this moment uniquely dangerous? Yes, there's an element of danger. More importantly, we are still the architects of intelligence. We are the ones building AI. We are appointing it to do certain things. We're training it to become good at certain things. We're giving it feedback. We're giving birth to superintelligence. That is more omnipresent on my mind than anything. And what I'm saying is the way in which we give birth, like the way we raise superintelligence, is the most critical thing. Because I think on the timescales that we're talking about, I don't think whether I'm going to live to the year 200 or 120, be 120 years old or 200 years old, I think that this will be brought to a head in the next few years, 5, 10 years. I think it's imminent. Now, if I'm wrong, like we have more time, great. But it's something that when you're gambling the future of intelligent existence, and we don't know if it's happened before in the galaxy. We haven't found any evidence of it. Maybe it's out there, maybe it's not. We don't know. We are so fortunate to have it on this planet. And we as a species are. We are willing to gamble our existence. And it's a representation that death has always been inevitable. And when death is inevitable, you kind of don't care. Like you're willing to just say, fine, like it's going to end for everyone, so why not? When death becomes inevitable, or when death becomes a maybe, and maybe we can extend our lives, it's a different reframe on how much we value consciousness. And so what I'm saying is if we could shift our framework. This is what I've been trying to do with Blueprint. I've been trying to say, death may not be inevitable. And if it may not be inevitable, that may give us something to aspire to, so that we want to solve these imminent problems in front of us. But that hasn't been a clean thing. Because when I say death may not be inevitable, people will say, I don't want to live forever. I never said forever. I just said I don't want to die. Because people will say then, I'm going to get bored. Or they come up with all these reasons. So this is why, back to your first question, do I think should we as a species begin adopting these algorithms? In many ways, yes, because as a species, our intelligence is pretty limited in acting in our own best interests, from the small things like binge eating, to the big things like discounting the future that we've never even experienced. It's idiotic to say, I don't want to live some duration of time. We have no idea what it's going to be like. We've never been in a situation before. So for any human to foreclose that opportunity is beyond foolish, but yet we do it. And we stop that thought process, and we stop the conversation, and you kill the will to live. It's a really weird attribute of our intelligence. We have all these weird things that we're both brilliant, and we're idiotic. And it's very hard to tease out where one begins and the other ends. If we get AI engineering wrong, could it wipe out all of humanity? Certainly. Give me a percentage chance. No idea. No one knows. Nobody can say anything intelligent about that question. So if I said that should be the number one thing we think about is AI alignment, because there's any chance that it's existential, would that feel like the right base assumption to operate from? Exactly. Okay. That makes sense to me. Now, going back to this was all nested inside of an idea, and I just wanted to make sure that we got all of that clear. We're building from the base assumption that if we don't engineer or birth, in your words, AI correctly, it has some chance, however slight, to completely annihilate humanity, and therefore, you have to take this extraordinarily seriously. Step number 1. If I can get people to recognize, believe, not sure which of those is more apt, if I can get them to recognize that not dying, we're drawing a line right now, though I think we can come back to this, between not dying and living forever. But if I can get people to understand that for the first time ever, not dying is a real possibility, that will hopefully create the fundamental shift in the way that they think about humanity going forward that's going to be necessary to do AI right, to align it well. Now, all of that was nested inside of this idea that COVID happens, we have this unbelievable response, we marshal forces quickly in a way that we never thought we could. I assume this is tied to the idea of how don't die as a religious movement could sweep, that AI could present an existential threat, question, glimmer of something, hey, if we don't address this immediately and with the forcefulness of the entire world in unity, we're in real trouble. So that sets the table. Now the question becomes, you and I may look at what happened during COVID differently. I am horrified by the authoritarian tap dance to grab power that happened during that time. And that is literally why I am super in love with AI and deploying it as fast as I can. I cannot wait to see it come to fruition. And at the same time, I'm like reading about Mao's China, I'm reading about Stalin's Russia, I'm like just really getting more and more paranoid by the day about how often and quickly this goes wrong. So do you have a different take? Like was COVID only a beautiful thing?